Oh, I don't have my gavel. I never use it anyhow. I think I will have your attention, please. I'll call this meeting, regular meeting of the Vergennes City Council to order, September 11th at 5:30. Would you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We don't have any amendments to the agenda that I'm aware of, although there's a possibility that some might come up. Welcome, David Small, to the council. I just wanted to have that on when we're on the cameras here. And so we move on to visitors, and we have Carrie McFarland, who would like to explain something relative to a potential grant.
I'm Carrie. Carrie McFarlane. I'm a Vergennes resident. I'm also a member of the Vergennes Planning Commission and a member of the Addison County Walk Bike Council. Some of you have seen me here before in that context. I'm here to request support for a municipal planning grant. I passed around a little info sheet. I think your goal today is to hear a little bit about this request, and then maybe in 2 weeks you will make a decision. The goal of this municipal planning grant is to obtain funding to develop a plan for a triangle bike loop. The plan would include design and implementation for this bike loop. It's a consortium municipal planning grant. Our other partner in this approach would be New Haven. So 2/3 of the route of this proposed bike loop would be in New Haven. And other destinations in this triangle would include Bristol and Middlebury. So who is behind this proposal? The Walk Bike Council of Addison County has been mulling it over, has been coming up with these ideas with lots of support from the Addison County Regional Planning Commission. We have a couple members from the Addison County Walk Bike Council here. And of course, you know Shannon from the Planning Commission. So the Vergennes Planning Commission has heard us out on this proposal, and they have said that the proposal is consistent with their goals for the city of Vergennes. When I brought it to the Planning Commission, it was just to see if they would be in support of the proposal. There were no dollar amounts attached at that point. We said it would be, it's a $35,000 grant that requires a 10% match, so it would require $3,500. And I did say as much to the Planning Commission, but at that point we didn't know how much Vergennes would be asked for and how much New Haven would be asked for. Over in New Haven, just last night, the Planning Commission approved $2,000. And they'll send that request on to the select board in New Haven, leaving just $1,500 for Vergennes. So what we're asking for is $1,500 to help with a match that could potentially get us $35,000. A few reasons to support this. One, make our city a magnet. We could, if we increase connectivity and active transportation options, I think we could make our city even more appealing for residents and tourists, which we think could improve, make it even more appealing for businesses. A grant like this could enable requests for additional grant funding for road improvements. So this could open the door to funding for improvements including bridge repair, water mitigation, culvert work, surface improvements, striping. And all of those improvements could improve safety for cyclists and motorists alike. I already mentioned how much money. Why should Vergennes in particular be included in this grant? I think there are a few reasons why. One is more towns in this grant proposal, in this grant request, increases the likelihood that the request will be approved. So with Vergennes and New Haven together, this is a stronger grant application. It requires only a 10% match. It's pretty, I haven't done a lot of grant proposals myself, but it sounds to me like a pretty small requirement for a pretty big gain, especially when the match can be shared between Vergennes and New Haven. We have local support here that's been documented in multiple stages of municipal planning. Local support, that is, for bike and walk connectivity priorities. And also Vergennes has no other requests for municipal planning grants at this point. So we couldn't engage in this request if we had another municipal planning grant request in process, and we don't. Why now? I think you'll see it mentioned in this info sheet. An initial study was done in the spring. It was 4 months long. It was managed by students and faculty at Middlebury College. This triangle bike loop was one of their recommendations. In addition, the state has 2 new priorities for municipal planning grants, both of which are kind of germane to this request. And because these are new priorities, because they haven't been asked for before this, I think it's a really great time for us to be getting in line to ask for funding along those priorities. The 2 priorities that are new are active transportation and recreation, and potential to serve as a statewide model. Finally, we have the momentum through the Walk Bike Council. We have people to work on this. So those are the reasons why I think Vergennes, I'm hoping Vergennes will be interested in participating. I'll just summarize. It's a $35,000 consortial municipal planning grant that requires a 10% match. We think New Haven will come forward with $2,000 of that match. So what we're asking for is $1,500. And what we stand to gain is, I think, significant progress toward the goals that we've established for Vergennes, for the city of Vergennes. That's what I have.
Okay. Does the council have any questions?
I have just one.
Yes.
Why is not Middlebury and Bristol included in the grant, that $3,500?
It's a reasonable question, and I think it's because
They actually have municipal planning grant applications in for other projects that they're working on right now.
So Middlebury
That
does,
would be Middlebury, right?
and Bristol doesn't have their
They don't have a town plan in force.
so they
They
can't
can't
apply
apply.
until they get that done, so.
Okay, that answers that question.
That was my question.
I know that right now, actually, Vergennes benefits a lot from bicycle folks. We do have a number of tours that this is one of their stops, and they spend a lot of money in Vergennes, so it's really advantageous if we can add to that. And actually, the governor, just in a meeting that we were in before this one, was talking about how, in particular, mountain biking, he was talking about, but how it really adds to the economy, having those kinds of things available for people to come, because people do travel to go to them.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks.
Okay, approval of minutes. We do not have minutes. We will have them next week. And warrants have been sent around to be signed. Are there any questions on the warrants? If there are no questions on the warrants, feel free to walk out. That's fine. We won't feel bad.
I don't have a TV. It's okay, you guys are nice. I have the audience to tell jokes if I want.
Well, see, I'm coming to the next portion which says citizens' comment, so if you wanted to make a joke, I mean, that'd be fine.
What did one snowman say to the other snowman? Do you smell carrots? It's a kid's joke. I volunteered at elementary school. See, told you.
So, no citizen comments, so we'll move on to... We'll move on to the business items. Appointment of the trustee for the Bixby Board. Chris Bradford, who recently passed away, was the trustee, the trustee that was appointed by the council, so we need to fill that position. I don't know whether any of you have any people in mind or have asked anyone, but we'll need to be filling that. I didn't expect that we would tonight, but
I can say that conversations have been had with a couple of members of the community. There have been no definitive answers to the question, but there are people who have been asked.
okay. Okay, item 5B, appointment of member to the DRB. You came in just perfect timing.
Excellent. Good evening. For those of you, probably some of you may not know me, Brent Rakowski. I'm Vice Chair of the DRB, currently sitting in as the chair because of Peter Guerin's move to zoning administrator. Because of Peter's move, we were tasked with coming up with an appointment to the DRB to fill his position. Myself, Shannon Haggett, and Peter Guerin took part in some interviews of 2 candidates that we had Friday, the 31st of August, and 2 obviously residents of Vergennes, one with some long-standing history in the city. Another recent move, I want to say a recent move, but within the last 5 years. Both candidates were, asked obviously a number of different questions in regards to kind of what their expectations were of, from the appointment, where they thought they would best contribute, some of their history and experience with a position, and. At the end of the interviews, we had some discussion back and forth on the merits of both candidates and ultimately came to a decision that was somewhat, I guess, narrowed down a little bit more because we had a resignation. One of the applicants backed out. So with that, I guess we're going to make a recommendation, or I would like to make a recommendation to appoint Teresa, and I'm going to forget her last name now, Hinman, to the DRB. Okay. And Shannon could speak to some other questions, maybe if you folks had any questions on that.
Any questions of the council? So then I'll need a motion to appoint Teresa Hinman.
Hinman, yes.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, that's right, the term. Is the term end next August?
It would fill the, I'm sorry, my understanding of that is it would fill the remainder of Peter's term. That term would.
Which would be to August of next year, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right, item 5C, appointment of Recreation Committee members.
High school is still looking. I talked to Jay yesterday and said, we put it in the e-news, we're going to do it again. During morning circles, we will make a concerted effort to push it out. He'll touch a couple of the counselors and teachers who interact with kids more in this range and kind of say, hey, give them a nudge. So hopefully by next time. Otherwise, I think if we don't have anybody, we should probably just have the committee convene and get going.
All right. Item 5D, the Basin Master Plan Task Force. And I sent around a redraft of that charge for that committee, and you may have noticed that I changed it to a council committee, which then brings it under the open meeting law. It seemed that is what you folks were leaning towards at the last meeting, so I thought that would be the easiest way to do it. So that means that we have a couple of actions. The first one is to create this task force. So I'd need a motion to create the task force in accordance with the charge that was written, unless you want to change the charge in any way.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions about the charge? It's basically the same as the other charge, except it's turned to the city council instead of a mayoral appointment, which makes it endure, which is another good reason, is that if it's a mayoral appointment, it ends with the mayor's term, and if it's a council creation, it just keeps on going. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion carries. Now, I have two people who I've contacted who are interested in being appointed to this committee. I have Kathy Rossier and Mike Winslow. Both of these folks were part of the original, when we had the community visit and we had these various committees set up during that. They were part of the original committee dealing with the basin, and they've been working on things in the basin, including physically working, all this time. So I think they would be good appointments. So if you think so, somebody could make a motion and we could appoint them.
I'll make said motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to appoint Kathy Rossier and Mike Winslow to the task force, Basin Task Force. I need a second.
Second.
It's been seconded. Any question or discussion?
Do they have a term?
Yes, in the new charge, I should have sent you a copy. In the new charge, it's July of each year that their terms come up. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposition? Thank you.
Is the partnership figuring out who they're gonna put onto this? Do you
Not
know?
yet.
Okay.
All right. City managers report. We're moving right along here.
Well, thank you, Rennie. When I met with Rennie on Thursday, he said it's the city manager's responsibility to drive the agenda for the city council meeting. And I said this will be the shortest city council meeting we've ever had after 2 days on the job. Item number one under city manager's report is the South Water Street sidewalk information. So at the end of our last city council meeting, there was a brief discussion, and we had asked Shannon to provide us with that inventory that it was done back in, I think, 2016. So that was included in your packet for purposes of just disclosure as to where we were in that process.
And I'd like to jump in at this point, because I made a few comments in the last meeting, and maybe they were inappropriate because I wasn't thinking clearly, but I just want to clarify some things relative to this. And under normal circumstances, dealing with sidewalk replacements like this one is really the city manager's job. The council doesn't get involved. I mean, as long as there's money there for the manager to do it, the manager takes care of it, as well as like things like paving and which streets are going to be paved and so on. And it's been deliberately done that way quite frankly, to take the politics out of doing those capital improvements. And so really, it's not our decision to make about whether this is going to be done or not. It's really the city manager's decision. The money is there. I'm not exactly sure what Matt's thinking is, but whatever it is, that's how we would do it. He's got the money, and he would take care of it. So I don't think we need to get involved. It's not really our responsibility. So unless you have some comments about it. And
I'd agree. I think that discussions relative to sidewalks date back a long, long time, back to when I was chair of the Planning Commission. I've had people ask me, like, what's going on there, and, like, I don't really know. I mean, all I was able to tell people is come to the meeting and you'll find out. But I don't really know what occurred there, other than that there was a sidewalk there, now there's a lawn there. And so does anybody know? I can fill in some of the gaps there. I will say that, I look back at the meetings, minutes from the
meeting in 2016, which I circulated to the council, and it was kind of left that the planning commission was wanting some guidance from the city council and wanted to have some discussion to have the city council kind of drive that process forward. I understand and agree with Rennie's perspective that it's really the city manager's responsibility. In the interim, in very recent history, the DPW was instructed by somebody other than the city manager to remove a portion of the sidewalk on the south side of South Water Street and topsoil and seed it, which has been done. My concern, as it stands currently, is as no decision has been made regarding the rest of the sidewalk, that may be work that's going to be undone, which comes at a cost, to the city, which is unfortunate.
To speak to that, I know what was going on. The thought was it was going to be cheaper to rip out topsoil and pour new concrete, if that was the ultimate decision, than it would be to rip out new concrete and put in topsoil. So since we were kind of in this, we don't know what's going on, then rather than just leave a hole there in the duration, it seemed like a cheaper alternative was to just seed it and find out if we want to put in sidewalk later, it's not too big of a cost, whereas the reverse would have been problematic. So that was the logic as to why that happened.
Sure. So I take direction, from you folks, and what I'm hearing is that the ultimate decision is my responsibility. I will work with Jim from, the head of DPW and make a determination as to how we'll move forward. I'll communicate that to you folks.
Is there any concern? I mean, I fully agree that any kind of repairs to existing sidewalks are your domain. Removing existing sidewalks, I don't know if that's the same, because we make decisions on when we put in new sidewalks. And so there's never been a sidewalk, then the council has to say, yes, that's money we want to spend. And I'm not sure for the residents whose houses are in front of existing sidewalks, if they're going to be thinking the same way. My own personal opinion, aside from council, is that side of Water Street is not worth saving. The sidewalk should go. So I'm okay on that. I don't know what the rest of the neighbors think.
Right.
And I'm not sure that removal of an existing asset is the same as repairing an existing asset.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that, to a certain extent, we have to defer to the plan and the discussion, and there've been many, many, many discussions relative to sidewalks. And we've had instances where, at least during my tenure on the Planning Commission, I listened to many, many developers complain bitterly about the cost of putting in a sidewalk. And my response was, that's too bad. So we make decisions based on where sidewalks are and where sidewalks are not, based on what is good public policy. And that policy and those decisions are guided by these folks here.
And if I may, the 2016 commentary about the Planning Commission looking for some guidance, that really had more to do with sidewalk extensions or removals than repair, certainly.
Well, that's a good point.
South Water resident who just walked in who might want to speak to.
The end of the sidewalk.
Hers is where the sidewalk just kind of stops in the middle of the hill and just goes nowhere. So people who ride their bikes kind of stop and don't know where to go.
And it's fine maybe for a careful kid in the middle of summer, but in the winter it's no good. It's not good whether you're going to our house or just trying to go up to Maple Street where there is a sidewalk, because there's no way to alert drivers that it's a place where there's no way for people to walk.
There's a 90-degree hairpin turn right there. I mean, David knows it well because he lives right on the corner.
Yeah, my property abuts both South Maple and South Water, so I'm very familiar with it.
And so it's
And-
sidewalks both end at weird places on South Water Street, and then there's no sidewalk until you get to Maple. There's nothing on that weird part that might be Waters or might be Victory or.
Yeah, who knows what it is. Yeah. I mean, my thoughts are this, is that we're in a city, and I understand that there's some logistical issues, as I understand it, relative to sidewalks and what the current code is.
Standard, yep.
And the standards and so on and so forth. My personal opinion, I'm averse to removing sidewalks. I think that, that there's a lot of challenges that a lot of places have, and there's sidewalks.
Well,
The reason we live in town is because of sidewalks. Because obviously we have this yard with the big yard and we want to be kind of in the country, but we like to be able to walk places. And it's silly when we pack up and walk to, or drive to Bristol so that we can ride bikes.
I think the argument to think about is if you're going to have a sidewalk, you can't have a car parked on it. And that's the problem with the end of your street, is there is nowhere to park, and I don't blame people, so they park on the sidewalk. Well, what good is a sidewalk if it's got a car in it? And it's more than one car, it's not just one car. So if you had a designated sidewalk on one side and didn't have it on the other, then people would naturally use the other side and hopefully would create parking. That would be the only thing I would think about a little bit, because they don't park in the street.
Yeah, and I mean, those are kind of perennial issues, and I've had people approach me, and I've spoken with Chief, and, you know, it's a perennial issue. But again, I mean, those are challenges that are not specific to Vergennes. People having places to park and sidewalks being close to buildings and so on and so forth. And I think that, you know, when you, and there are, I mean, I get it, you know, there's not a lot of width to the street there, and I'm not an engineer, I don't have anything to do with DPW, I don't know how wide roads are, or how wide roads are supposed to be, but there's an awful lot of places in the world where the streets are relatively narrow. Spent about 3 years living in one of them, so it is what it is.
well, back in my day, it's a long time ago, as manager, actually, I looked at that section of street for a complete rebuild. Not just the sidewalks, but actually rebuilding, realigning the street, putting drainage in, sidewalks, curbs. I mean, a real project to make that street look and function the way it should. That's a big price tag to do that, so I never forwarded it to the city council to come up with the money to do that, but I really think that that's really what should be done down there, because there are more problems there than just the sidewalks. There's no adequate drainage, the street is narrow, there really needs to be a lot of work done down there. But to hopefully try and resolve this, we can get, I guess we can get into it if we chose to, because the city council can direct the manager to do whatever we want the manager to do, as long as it's legal. But perhaps with this one, we should still leave it up to the manager to contact some of the neighborhood and talk with some of the neighborhood, see what their feelings are relative to the sidewalk, and make a decision based on what he finds out, and the fact of whether we can actually put in a regulation sidewalk in some of those areas, which I question. Those sidewalks were put in when there were not standards for sidewalks, and now there are, and they need to be a certain width, they need to be built a certain way, and the street may not even be capable of putting sidewalks in there. So I think maybe if we leave it up to the city manager to do a little research on it and to come up with his decision, we'll see where it goes from there, instead of us kind of monkeying around with it, not knowing where we're going.
We have one just sort of more urgent concern, and that would be that when winter comes, if there is a sidewalk, that it's plowed. Because they've been stopping at, I guess my mom, at Mark's house and saying that there was too many.
Because it was only rocks and gravel in front of Bob and Julie's place, and nothing else was plowed the rest of the.
And so now they don't have a sidewalk, so he's gonna go in the street. But if he comes back, there's, from my parents' house to our house, there's a sidewalk the whole way. And it's not beautiful, it's not perfect, but it's got grass, but it really works. And I'm the biggest user of it, so I know. And there's one house where some of their driveway rocks are now in the street, but if that was cleared up and if people pulled in their driveway the full way, he can plow there, the plowman. But for some reason it stopped, and it's gotten worse like the past few years, and then we stopped getting mail, and then, but nobody has listened. And we use it a lot in the winter too, and it really doesn't change, like winter, summer, if there's a sidewalk, I think it should be maintained. So it doesn't need to be fancy. And then I guess the other thing would be, like maybe in the meantime, before having like a full something proper at that corner and that curve and stuff, even just sign that says like, hey, there's kids, like the triangle with family picture. Or some stripes on the road that let cars know this is a place where you just need to share. Something simple to just make people who aren't already looking, make them look a little more.
Sure.
Just in the meantime, I mean, it's cheap.
Yeah, that's, and again, I live right on the opposite side of the corner there, and it's a perennial issue. I mean, particularly with the build-out that's occurred on the periphery of the city. People use that as a shortcut, and Chief Merkel is pretty good about sending people down occasionally and writing tickets. But that might be another, I would certainly support that, because someone will get seriously injured or killed on that corner. I mean, I've seen cars come around that corner 40 miles an hour. They're just not aware. So that might be another thing to look at, some sort of traffic calming that can be done there. No, we're not going to go back. We're not going back there. Yeah, we're not going to go back there. But there's other ways to do it. I mean, one of the takeaways that I got from attending a number of these things over the years relative to pedestrian safety is vehicular traffic moves at the rate at which it feels reasonable and safe, not what the posted speed limit is. And so, when you visually or physically, you were talking about width of streets, actually when you widen a street, it makes it less safe, makes cars go faster. So I'm all for, I mean, they did that on, and tried that in some neighborhoods in New York, and it ended up people getting killed. So if you can physically or perceptually narrow the street, cars go slower.
Got it.
So can we move on? Okay, thank you. All right.
So a couple things that I picked up when Mel was headed out. I'm working with Brian from Vergennes Area Rescue Squad regarding our ongoing service agreement. I'm just putting on that as a note that so you folks are aware that it's still in the works. We did start our audit in the office last Wednesday, Joan? Thursday? Tuesday. My first day, that's why I don't remember. And that is ongoing as well. They're going to have to come back for a second day, but nothing of any major import there. It was just stuff that was kind of on our last meeting notes. Typically, we would discuss a budget update at this time. We did have some issues getting our warrants uploaded this week, so I do not have an updated budget. It really hasn't changed because we haven't added anything in until we get back to the office tomorrow. And the other thing that's not on this list is the RFBs, the rapid flashing beacons that we are rolling out on our critical sidewalks or crosswalks within the city. We expect that project to be done by the end of September. It's gone really quite well, and I've been using the one going from City Hall to Three Squares a lot in the last 7 days. Yes, yep.
So I'll tell you what happened yesterday. And I think we have to educate people that they work. Because there was a huge line of traffic going south. I was coming north, and I had no idea someone was in the crosswalk because the line was so long. It was down to almost to Bignell's office. And I didn't see someone crossing, and I went across the crosswalk and realized that there was somebody there. But you can't see them. And so if they're not going to use the beacon, it doesn't give you a clue that someone's there if there's a vehicle in the way.
I did speak with Chief Merkel today regarding the rapid flashing beacons, and he's going to put out a front porch forum posting because, we also don't want a false sense of security that just because those things are illuminated, that it's going to automatically stop a vehicle. So we do have some education to do on that, Lynn, and we will get to that immediately.
The schools all do walk and ride on first Wednesdays of every month. The next Wednesday, they're going to try and do a special rollout to incorporate the beacons. So all the kids will be talking about them and pushing them and walking across with this flashing, and the fact that you don't have false insecurity. Robin Newton does have a new contract to be at her post the entire year.
Great.
The fact that there's a beacon there does not mean she's going anywhere.
Good. That's great. Very good. Last thing in closing, kind of tongue-in-cheek, I have 13 years until retirement. So if you guys need to get in front of that, I would encourage you to do so. But so far, so good. Everyone's been very gracious to me getting into my new role, and I thank everyone for their support so far, so thank you. That's it, Rennie.
Okay, thank you. Mayor's report. Let's see, the one that's on the agenda anyhow is related to the annual VLCT annual business meeting. I am attending the town fair. I think you all would have gotten this in the mail because they generally send you stuff directly because they have our list of council members. The town fair is October 3rd and 4th. It's in South Burlington at the Doubletree. I plan on attending, and any or all of you can attend. We do have money in the budget if you need to, if you want to. The cheap rates, if you sign up early, the early bird rate ends on September 14th. But the city, we do, as I said, we do have money in the budget for council members to attend things like this. And it's some years not so interesting, other years very interesting. But anyhow, the city needs to have a delegate and a voting delegate, which has to be voted by the council. I will be attending, so unless anybody else plans on attending and wants to be the voting delegate, then I would need a motion to appoint me as the voting delegate for Vergennes.
I'll make said motion. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Is there anybody else interested in going, by the way?
I might go. I don't know.
Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. I don't have it on the agenda, but I just wanted to make some comments about what do they call it? The thing we had today with the governor. What do they call that?
The cabinet.
Yeah, but there's a name for it.
Capital for a day.
Capital for a day, that's it is. The governor has been going around to different counties and communities, taking basically his cabinet with him, and an opportunity to see the cabinet work, basically, and they also talk with people about the various subjects related to their particular agency and so on. And so the governor was in Addison County today, in Vergennes, Bristol, and Middlebury, and there was a special session held, which I thought was really good for us, where they talked about opportunity zones, and we are one of the opportunity zones, but they chose us on this day for that Agency of Commerce and Community Development, to kind of call in various people that might be interested in doing development and using that advantage of the opportunity zone, and explained the zone to a group of people this morning, which I thought was really good that they chose us to do that explanation, although there's not a lot of regulations on it right now because it's a new federal program. But also during the day, there were other meetings. I met with, and a few others met with the Secretary of Transportation at the train station today, and found out about the progress being made on that. It has been, the train station will be owned by the Agency of Transportation, which is a little bit different. They don't normally own a lot of buildings. But, it's usually Buildings and General Services in the state that owns them. But Transportation is owning it, and they will be finishing it. There's money in the state budget to finish the train station, and they expect to bid out and have it done by someplace around this time next year. The interior to be entirely finished, and the train platform built. So the train is coming, by the way. As soon as the Middlebury project is completed, then Amtrak will be coming through. So that's 3 years away when they complete that. And so we will have, I can't say it's commuter rail, but we will have rail. And I think, because I've had meetings with Amtrak, and I think that's, the plan is 2 trains daily. But anything could change. Anyhow, so there's progress on that, and at the end of the day, there was a meeting with the governor and part of his cabinet, and a number of us were invited to go over things about economic development, tourism, a whole host of various things. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get through the whole meeting because I was at another meeting. But it was a very interesting day, and we really appreciate the fact that the governor has taken the time to go to communities and talk with people about what's going on in state government and how state government can help. What should they be doing that's different than what they're doing now? It's really a good program that he's put together. So with that, unless you have any questions, that's the end of the mayor's report.
I will make the motion to adjourn.
Good for you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.